And you are welcome. It's time for the dailies. We've got them here with us, our front pages, and we're hoping that you can get to listen and perhaps maybe decide which one you'd like to see this morning. Perhaps maybe pick up and read. I'm not doing it alone. Of course, we've got the delectable. I always say delectable. Of course, Titi is in the studio here with me. Thank you very much for joining.
Good morning.
All right, so Titi, together, let's get into the papers for 2nd of August. It's a Wednesday here. We're starting with the Guardian newspaper, and front page for the Guardian newspaper, front and center, rising hardship, NLC defies truce, proceeds a nationwide protest that's beginning today. There's still a lot of skepticism regarding what's happening exactly.
Very true.
People are very unsure because there's not much information that's been passed out, even by the NLC themselves. However, the paper does state that they are going on with it. But there's not, unlike most protests from before, you would already know fervently what might happen from today.
So nobody knows if it's going to affect transportation. Nobody knows if it's going to affect, private citizens as well. Everyone is just waiting to see exactly what happens today, to know what's going on.
However, the Lagos State Transport Union have said that they will not be a part of this.
Okay.
So that definitely will not be affected, as it seems. As yet. It's still a little bit too early to tell, however, but we'll follow up the story and see how it goes. Other headlines for The Guardian: danger averted as light aircraft on test run crashes on Lagos road.
Okay.
We talked about this from earlier. The videos are rampant on social media. You can see them. Good job by the pilot, even if he's in the ICU currently. But he definitely targeted that road. You can see the photo stories there on the paper. A picture of the aircraft from before and after when it was evacuated from the scene. And, of course, a picture of the Lagos State governor on site. Moving on now to other headlines at the top. Sit-at-home enforcers killed 250 people in 2 years, says Ohaneze. And Falana warns ECOWAS leaders against attacking Niger Republic. That's going to be revisited in other headlines. We'll talk about that when we get there. Consider FCT 37th Nigerian state for presidential poll. Tinubu begs court. And Senate shields El-Rufai from petition over insecurity in Kaduna. Finally, for The Guardian, foreign investment in equities market declines by 90.6% in 10 years.
I think 90% in 10 years is, I think everyone has a pretty good idea of why that happened. But now the issue is, where do we go from here? What are the next moves to make to, at least reduce that gap over the next, hopefully, 2 to 5 years?
Oh, we've gone in for 4 years.
Foreign investment is still extremely important for the country, for the growth of the nation.
With all the groundwork put in place by the president before he got into office, it would seem that that's a big agenda on his table. So we're hoping that, and that's why I said 4 years, it should be a timeline to see exactly how far that goes.
And then in the end, it was always probably going to get more complicated before it got better, because there were just so many wrongs that needed to be righted first. And of course, everyone is feeling the pinch, when salaries hit end of the month, it didn't really feel like they really came in, did it?
Like a drop of water.
Exactly.
Oh. What other papers do you have?
Yes, we do. We have other papers with us this morning. We're going to touch on the Nation newspaper. First, it says, IG warns against violence as Labour insists on protest. It also says here how Tinubu will end electricity crisis, according to El-Rufai. The story starts there on the cover and heads over to page 2. Now, there is a photo story there of President Tinubu and his Benin Republic counterpart, Talon, and he was in Cotonou yesterday. Then, of course, the story that's been all over the news, the small engine aircraft accident yesterday, the tail there showing with the first responders. It also says here, that a jet crashes on Ikeja Major Road. So people are calling this so many different things.
So what a jet is? The jet is a propulsion, a fuel-propelled engine, which burns at a very high rate. That's a jet.
Yes.
A helicopter's got that big propeller on top. This was a single-engine propelled plane with one propeller in front.
Okay.
It's often very small and that's why it's called a light aircraft. Fact is, you can actually pick it up and turn it around manually.
Yeah.
So it's a light aircraft. So that
there's
that
been
should
a
be
lot
made
of back
clear,
and forth
yeah.
on what sort of aircraft it actually is. Some have been saying helicopter, some have been saying small plane, some are saying jet now.
Capacity shouldn't even be more than 4 passengers. So that's how small it is.
And then, of course, if you're hearing about this story for the first time, we do hear that all the passengers are alive, but
Although
they
in
are
critical condition.
in critical
Yeah.
condition. It says here also, immigration arrests Cameroonian seeking Nigerian passport. And that's what is right there at the bottom of the cover of The Nation. Senate to revisit CBN Act, says Akpabio. And to wrap this one up, it says, residents defy 2-week sit-at-home call in Southeast.
Oh. Let's move on now to the Punch, shall we? I've got the Punch newspaper here. Subsidy talks. Labour shuns FG begins protest as oil workers down tools. How FG NLC meeting deadlocked. Labour PDP berates Tinubu's proposed pay rise. IG orders AIG's CPs to maintain order, prevent violence. Falana says protests unlawful. And then we see the photo story of the aircraft crash from yesterday. FG orders probe as test flight plane crashed on Lagos Road. And at the bottom of the Punch, 500 illegal courier operators under prosecution, says NIPOS. And task force officials extort 35,000 naira from motorists on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Wow, is that still happening? Foreign trained doctors, mass failure worsens Nigeria's manpower crisis. And at the top of the Punch newspaper, Tinubu sends second ministerial list today, and direct intervention in power sector hits 7 trillion naira, said the FG. Regarding Niger, Russia, Burkina Faso, Mali oppose ECOWAS military intervention. Now, there have been plenty of talks regarding this one, and it's a big issue, quite frankly. You have no idea if there should be any intervention from ECOWAS into the Niger instance. And this is because it seems that they would be having the backing of their neighbors, which is Burkina Faso and Mali, who are currently going through similar situations and have allied with Russia. So it's a big issue.
It is.
Because it also has its implications on the sovereignty of not just Nigeria, but the entire ECOWAS nations as a whole, whether they're just going to sit and watch this, what they've termed a cancer worsen across West Africa, or do something to preserve democracy across West Africa.
But then leaning, and I use the term loosely, leaning on Russia for support is also a controversial thing because of how much connection countries in ECOWAS have been to the Western world. Talking about America, talking about Europe.
They're all French colonized countries, by the way.
But I do understand.
See how they're going against the
exactly.
French roots and
exactly.
Aligning with Russia.
Aligning with Russia.
So that's kind of like saying, you know what?
Yeah.
We don't do this no more.
But then notoriously, many of the French colonized countries, once they did get their independence, they've always had their own issues with, leaning on their former colonialists in many ways, which is why they've leaned on America, they've leaned on other European countries for assistance and
this time Russia
business.
is
But Russia is seemingly eager to do this, and that's
exactly in the world's good books. They need allies. They need people. They need countries. They need So, well, we can do one more paper. I think we've got. Which one have you got there?
I think I have the Daily
The
Independent.
Daily Independent.
And it says here, fuel subsidy removal. Nationwide mass protest starts today. Labour insists and says what federal government has put on the table as palliative, not enough. Perfects mobilization from state affiliate unions, and police warn against violent protests, order watertight security. Now, when you hear watertight security, you're just hoping that jets of water are not going to be, sprayed. Whenever I hear that term watertight, I just think of how protests all over the world are sometimes fought against with jets of water cannons. Now, it says here, Tinubu failed to explain his plans for ailing refineries, according to NLC. Court grants Emefiele's request to serve bail order on DSS. Presidential Election Court reserves judgment on Obi's LP's petition. And on the ministerial nominees, Drama as Senate screens El Rufai, Umahi, Musawa, and 6 others.
Very interesting stuff going on there. I mean, it should be put into a little little package for seasons for Nigeria, ministerial nominee screening.
Yeah.
Always very interesting. But
yeah, but it does feel like a lot of people they're more involved, they're more interested
Oh,
in
yes,
what they
we
want to bring
definitely
to the
are.
table than ever before.
Like would say, we're more woke.
It is interesting. It's very
It is very interesting.
And the lobbying going on right now.
Oh, it's not just the drama. It's because they've been grilled on competence, on credibility, and all of that. And to find some of the places where these people have fallen short, the gravity of it, it's alarming as to what. And you're like, I've got a professorship here, as in, and I'm, you know, what I could. Hey,
exactly.
In any case, thank you very much for joining me. Hoping that you guys got 1 or 2